welcome to Business, the Art of Winning. Hey, thanks for joining us on this podcast, wherever you are in the world. Driving. I always actually listen to my podcast driving because I find it really helpful. Brain goes into alpha waves and that information just starts to sink in. Mind you, if you're somewhere else doing different jobs around the house or in the office, I appreciate your time because I spell time differently than everybody else. I spell it, what is it? L-I-F-E. So let me trade well today. Today's session is sponsored by Unstoppable Leaders, which is a workshop we'll be running in the beautiful Sunshine Coast here in Queensland on the 29th of March at the Alex Surf Club. So if you know someone who should go to that seminar, look, it's valued at $600 per head. This is a complimentary process. It outlines our Unstoppable Leaders and our Dale Carnegie Academy, which is a great process to be involved if you're a motivated person who wants to do something exciting with your life and you need some tools to help you along the way. Today's session is all about appreciation, how to give appreciation and positive feedback. One of the reasons why I'm quite excited by this topic is I've just finished our program, which we ran for a company, which I've been working with now for 8 years. I've trained about 500 of their staff through one of our mainframe programs, the Dale Carnegie course. And we've just launched this fantastic product throughout the globe over the last couple of years. It's develop or unleash your leadership potential. And so one of the key areas around that is actually how to lead, how to communicate, how to get the most out of your team, especially if you're a supervisor that is new to leadership. This is a great process to help. And one of the areas that we look at is feedback. And actually how to give positive feedback and appreciation. So there are a couple of tools that I'd like to chat to you about today, why it's important to give people feedback and how it can really make a difference as a leader so that your business can keep on winning. So first of all, you've got to be receptive to feedback, right? You got to go, hey, do I really want to hear this? And a lot of the time, because some feedback can be negative, we may actually have a resistance to feedback. We might even be smart enough or be talented enough to be able to sway the conversation so that you don't get that feedback and you never really get to hear it. But the reality is that if you can take feedback as a gift, even if it's negative feedback, then you are going to prosper. In fact, Dale Carnegie said that if criticism had any power, the skunk, that was Mark Twain who said that if criticism had any power, the skunk would have been extinct many years ago. Dale Carnegie said if you're not being criticized, then guess what? You're probably doing nothing. And so congratulations if you are getting some negative feedback, which you may see as criticism. It could just be negative feedback because you're obviously doing something. And because you're doing something, you are going to be noticed. In Australia and New Zealand, we talk about the tall poppy syndrome, which means that if you grow too tall, or you might get your head lobbed off. Now, in North America, which I've obviously spent a lot of time because I've been with the Carnegie organization for over 30 years, they don't really tend to have that tall poppy syndrome. It's more about helping, supporting, and lifting and excelling either in sports, business, social arts. So that seems to be the ethos of other countries throughout the world. So one of the reasons why in our particular culture, sometimes, giving an appreciation could be seen as a negative, not actually a positive. But when we look at the way the world is now changing, where engagement is just so important, an engaged employee is typically 240% more productive than someone who's just doing the job, getting paid to do the job. And then you think about that too. That means if I'm able to get my culture in a stage where everyone's contributing and feeling engaged, I'm going to have, maybe twice the horsepower of an organization that's just got people at an ambivalent stage. So actually, I had a good friend. He owned a poultry business. His name is Carl. He's still a good friend today. One of the things that he wanted to do was just get ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And so one of the ways he was able to do that is he used to build his staff. And we were training like people who pluck chickens for a living on the line. But some of these guys would actually do a Dale Carnegie program. And someone would ask, why are you putting people pluck chickens through the Dale Carnegie course? Well, he said, some of these people have been with me for 10 years, more than 10 years. And those people are masters of what they're doing. They're on the line. They see what happens. I need them to contribute. And what I found by putting them through the Dale Carnegie program is that they'll start to say things. And a lot of the things that they say will certainly more than pay for the program that they're embarking on. But as a team, the opportunity is phenomenal. Plus, you know what? After 10 years, if I can help them, be more effective in their workplace, but also maybe even at home, that's got to be a good return for them. So, and I've got a lot of other organizations. I just mentioned the company that we've done Unleash. My good friend Jason from Bradman's is a really amazing CEO. And he was obviously mentored by good people within that business, Bill and Jane Bradman, who are graduates as well. One of the reasons why they've had over 600 people through the Dale Carnegie program, people who are on the line, people who are putting big frames together, glass together. Why would you put them through the process? Same reason, because they're masters. 10,000 hours to master something. And after 10,000 hours, you can start to see where things might be better. But if you can't talk about it, if you don't have the confidence to share or disagree agreeably, then that information over a cumulative time, let's say a year, is a lot of great stuff being lost. And if we can do that as a team, then it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. And so one of the key areas around building culture, an engaged team, is spotting what's right, spotting what's good, and letting people know. And so in our classes, this is what we teach. First thing is, if you are going to give someone a compliment or a strength-centered comment, in other words, a comment of their strengths that you've observed, here's a really good way to do it. Evidence defeats doubt. So some people will come up to me and go, hey, that was really great, Will. That was a great seminar you run. And I go, oh, great. Which part was great? What part of my greatness are you referring to? And what I'm saying here is that if you say, hey, that was great, it's a lovely comment, by the way, and thank you for sharing your words of encouragement. But if you could back that up, hey, what is great? Give me some evidence and back that up. And so a way to do that might be is, hey, John, one of the things I've noticed about you is you're always very tenacious. I give you a project that is difficult at times with very tight timelines. I never hear you complain, and you always put your best into it. So it's your tenacity that I find incredibly good. So I'm backing it up with maybe something that they did. I'm also trying to back it up with maybe a value or something that's important that I've noticed about them, but they may not have even noticed about it in themselves. So I actually think about it like a tree. So the foliage of the tree is the byproduct of what you do. So the trunk would be what you do, okay? And the root system would be who you are. So the foliage of the tree would be the byproduct of what you do. So that might be the vision. So we have a vision as an organization to create all these apples and all this prosperity. So whatever that might look like. So that would be the foliage of the tree. Obviously, we have to do some good stuff consistently well, and that might be all the nutrients coming through the trunk. Okay, so that's the doing process. And the next would be the values. Now, values, you can't see those values because they're like the, to draw an analogy, they're like all the roots that just go deep into the dirt. You can't see it, but you know it's there. And that could be who you are as a person. That's your I am, your values. And so the roots of the tree is the values. The trunk is the things that you might do. And the foliage of the tree is what you might have. So when we coach people around giving strength-centered comments or praise and recognition, this is how we do it. First thing is you can actually compliment someone on what they have. There's big apples on that tree, or you have a really nice car, or you got a great smile, or, your dress sense is really good. This is lovely. This is nice compliments. But it's pretty obvious, right? It's the obvious stuff, and you should do it, and you can back it up, and you will get some form of good connection. But it's far, far more meaningful if you can compliment someone on what they're doing. And it's interesting because, you really have to think about maybe some of the things that they're doing, how it contributes maybe to your family, contributes to you as a partner, contributes to you in a business context. And since it's the art of winning in business, it could be, hey, I really like the fact that you are patient with disgruntled customers. I was watching you there at 10 o'clock this morning, and you were dealing with Mrs. Jones in a way that was respectful. You really listened to her, and you were able to diffuse a situation which could have easily been quite challenging for the organization. So well done. You do that job incredibly well. So giving evidence around what people do is more meaningful. Now, obviously, yes, the foliage, you can compliment people on what they have or accumulated. But if you can compliment people on what they do, it definitely has a deeper impact. Now, this is a hard part, right? The harder part is to compliment people or to give us strength around the root system, the unseen. So that means you probably have to be a good observer of what they have. You have to be a good observer of what they do. And then you've got to be able to look at what their character is and what that character is doing as a result of who they are. Now, it's a deeper process, but if you can hit that, you can start to create a culture where people do see themselves incredibly valued. And it might be, like Charlie, you're just like a ray of sunshine. You walk into the office at 9 o'clock, and everything seems to be a little bit lighter. I really appreciate that lighthearted gift that you give to all of us who work for you. Now, there was nothing complicated about the descriptive nature of my statement. In fact, I used probably words that weren't that deep. I just used things like lighthearted. So you see how graphical that is? But it taps into a value. What's the value? Lightheartedness, fun or joy, which is some people's values. And so if you can tap into things that are value-based or values that you would like to continue and reinforce, people do appreciate it. So just to recap, remember, engaged employees 240% more effective than someone who's just doing a job. Our job as leaders in business is to be able to create a culture where that fosters, that engaged culture is just part of your offering. Because I tell you what, the customer doesn't come first. The customer comes second. If your internal customers don't want to work for you, don't like their job, how long does it take for your external customers to feel it? I tell you, it's pretty quick. And you want that consistent offering. What does it take to be an extraordinary salesperson? Just don't do ordinary things. So what does it take to be an extraordinary culture? Just don't do ordinary things. So by helping your people to be able to foster their own strength, and you can do that by reinforcing some of the things that they do right, that can make a big difference. Now, obviously, sometimes we have to communicate things they're not doing right, which is negative. And one of the things that we actually highlight and we get you to practice in our What Got You Here Won't Get You There program is what we call the 3-in-1 principle. And the 3-in-1 principle is when you are going to give someone feedback, it's just changing the wording. Now, why is words so important? Well, words are really important because they're energy-based, right? And people can feel that depending on temperament as well. Some temperaments can be more sensitive to certain words than other temperaments. And so it's just learning how to use words effectively that resonates. Now, why do you want them to resonate? Well, it's a bit like a Wi-Fi code. If you get a couple of digits wrong, it's just not going to land. And because my time is so precious, LIFE, I want to make sure that my time to communicate does land. And so one of the ways that we work is if you think of 3 things the person's doing well, and instead of criticism, use a word like an opportunity. So here are 3 things that I think you do incredibly well, Mrs. Jones. Okay, Mrs. Jones, you do this well. You are great with customers. You're fantastic when there's a conflict situation. You have this ability to be adaptable and helpful. which allows you to solve those customers' problems. Hey, one of the opportunities that I'd like to maybe just share with you is maybe dealing with your customers' complaints really quick. Because what happens is that what we notice internally and externally is those complaints can start to escalate. So if there is a way that you can get to those complaints even earlier than you're currently getting them to, I appreciate that you get to those complaints by the end of the day. But if we could probably do it maybe even within the hour, I think that that would diffuse your customer, but also help you do what you do best, which is build rapport and help our customers to move forward. So here are 3 things that I've said you did really well, and here's your opportunity for growth. Now, do we like feedback? I don't know. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, depending on who I'm dealing with. But, like if you go back home and you go, hey partner, hey loved one, give me 10 things that I can improve. Now, a lot of you are brave enough, wise enough not to ask that question. Why? Because they've got more than 10. Is that right? They got more than 10. They got a long list of things that you can improve. But look, rather than be hesitant about maybe listening to negative feedback, get enthusiastic about it, or even control it. Here's another way that you can control feedback. Hey, this is something I've observed in myself. Sometimes I can have a bit of a blind spot around, speaking when I'm angry. Look, I noticed that I did that with you not so long ago, honey. And, what is sort of advice or feedback you could give me that maybe just might help our situation when I get a little bit triggered around some of the things that we have to deal with? Now, all of a sudden, that is you being proactive rather than waiting for feedback. It's having an inkling of what you want to improve and asking for advice from the people that you know that you need to improve that type of behavior with. So that's a lot today, isn't it? So this workshop's been sponsored by our Unstoppable Leaders Workshop, which will be run in the Sunshine Coast on the 29th of March. That'll be at the Alex Surf Club. It's worthwhile. We'll be talking a little bit about that subject of blind spots, learning how to receive feedback. But as leaders and in business, the art of winning, we've got to know how to take it. We've also got to know how to give it so that we can have a high-performing team. Hey, I enjoy this podcast. I enjoy working with you. For those who listen to everyone, and there's a few of you that do, make this day a good day. Remember, there are a lot of beautiful things around you right now, and a lot of those beautiful things are in the people that you work with. Think about maybe something that you appreciate about your staff, maybe that you appreciate about your kids, maybe that you appreciate about your partner, and maybe tell them with evidence. Honey, I think you're awesome. Here's the reasons why. And then, let them have that opportunity just to resonate with it. By the way, a lot of people will sometimes just brush it off, and that's okay because maybe they're not used to receiving it. It doesn't mean the art of giving appreciation is wrong. Just help them to learn to receive it by being consistent. I'm William Farmer. This has been Business, the Art of Winning.